Hi, Bill Henshaw here again, another one of my YouTube current events videos, and very current again. And I've addressed this issue before, abortion, but not in the context I'm going to be doing it now. And those of you that online and read news articles, you noticed that South Carolina is the latest quote unquote state to enact laws banning almost all abortion that wouldn't become effective unless or until Roe v. Wade gets overturned. Now, there are a lot of problems with that, and we'll get to them. But the question I want to ask today is if governments think they can pass laws like this, who the hell is it do they think owns your body? Can tell you whether to have kids, whether not to have kids. I mean, my goodness, and a lot of you recognize the fact that they do, and you attribute that, to the application for social insecurity benefits, which is correct. Licenses, especially a marriage license. And think about the legal definition of license, Black's Fourth Law Dictionary. Permission granted by competent authority to do an act that without such permission would be illegal, a trespass, or a tort. And we need their permission to get married? That was never true up until the 1870s in Reconstruction. There's another benchmark BS issue about that. And one of the reasons for it was that up until that time, interracial marriage was prohibited. It's something not only you didn't do, but you put your life at risk if you did do it, right or wrong, or good or bad. It's the way it was. And I think the license came into existence in order to grant permission to do that kind of marriage, um, and make it rational. And again, it would have been popular at the time for the lawmakers to say it, but over the course of time, that's what's happened. So that said, the real problem is that you don't see it argued in any of these cases is the one I uh, directly exactly to the 14th Amendment, and that was the net effect of the amendment, and it was planned behind the scenes. The Committee of 15 on Reconstruction knew it. Probably nobody else outside the Wall Street banksters did. Was in effect to reverse the relationship of we the people to government, going from principal and agent. And after all, we ordained and established this Constitution to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Simple. We tell them what to do, not the other way around. Now, however, with the good old 14th War Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Since when are at least state citizens subject to that jurisdiction? And maybe indeed is anyone subject to that jurisdiction? And that's where it gets interesting in their goddamn courtrooms. You try to go in there and argue stuff like this, which we have every right to do. We're never opposed, and yet we never get rulings on the issues. And think about that. If we're wrong about this somehow, and trust me, I'm not, how is it that we instruct our representatives to take care of business and fix things and make it right? Or nominate and elect those who will do it? And if you can't do either of those two things, what does that tell you about elections? Absolutely meaningless gestures. That's all they ever have been. Three wolves, two sheep voting on what's for dinner. End of story. So that's what you're directly confronting here with the abortion issue. And we need to approach it in different ways, and cite different provisions of the Constitution, not the 14th War Amendment. Forget about it. Not civil rights. Doesn't exist, never did exist. And by the way, there was never really anything planned to help the freedman, even at the time. The whole point was to make corporate citizens, among other things, do away with the states, reverse the relationship. That's the real agenda. But since they didn't bother to tell anybody that ratified the amendment about that, what does that tell you about the consent of the governed? Not only for the 14th Amendment, but every amendment after that. So that's where they are, but they think they own us. And the IRS operates on the quote unquote principle that a quote unquote taxpayer has a zero interest in his time and labor. How the hell can that be for you and me? That's all we have. I mean, if they own our life that way, it's a piece of cake to pass abortion laws. There's no question about it. They can do one, they can do the other. The problem is they can't do either, not with the BS military government that's in power now. And that's what it is we have to change. And abortion might be one of the best issues to do it because a lot of people pay attention to that one way or the other. Um, and that's where we can make up some ground here. So we'll see how that goes. But it's just, my goodness, if they own you, they own you. And what they did in their own minds, by the way, was reverse our position from principal and agent to what they call guardian and ward. You might as well call it what it is, master and slave. There's nothing nice about it. And those of you civil rights advocates that think that you're no longer slaves, you better think again. Not a damn thing has changed over the course of 160 years now. Not a thing. I mean, they own us, and a lot of you people actively involved in civil rights, whether acting in good faith or not, have aided and abetted the process of the use of federal military law in states where it can't be done except in occasions of rebellion or invasion, none of which is known to exist at this point in time. This is what we have to do to take it back. Maybe abortion is the key issue where to start. And we'll see how that goes. But yeah, and by the way, my question, and I've answered it a long time ago, was why would you want to have kids in this age? And for me, this goes back decades, because I realized from the start with the work I do, family can't be first. So there wasn't any point in having one. I just couldn't see putting all the burden, on a single mom or a mom who I wouldn't be able to help a whole lot because this work is more important. But the bottom line is, in today's promiscuous society where you got, second graders going to school with cell phones and who knows what the hell they see on them, and it's just all shot to hell. By the time you're fourth or fifth grade, who knows, what you get into, things we couldn't have dreamed of when I was in school at that age. But everything is, on the table now. There's incestuous relationships and things like that, and interracial relationships, transgender entities. And by the way, think about this on a subject like that. How in the hell can someone 7 or 8 years old, or even somewhat older than that, have any clue about their quote unquote gender identity? Especially when the moment you walk into one of their goddamn courtrooms these days, the first thing they do is find you incompetent without a hearing, without evidence, without active participation by the local dumbass. This is a black robe bastard, supposedly a purportedly neutral magistrate doing all this. So if you're incompetent in their courtrooms, how can you possibly be competent to determine your sexual identity, assuming arguendo that can be done? Even better yet, how the hell can you be competent on election day? Whoa, it's just the way it is. We're either competent or we're not. And they think we're not. And by the way, another big deal is with all these abortion laws and things like that, they claim to be, vitally concerned with human life and existence, but that's not the system operates on that basis. The system they run. It's exactly the opposite. What they want is enough of us out there where they can monetize our birth certificates, take advantage of our trust accounts, and make a hell of a lot of money off us. We don't have any rights the de facto national socialist government is bound to respect, and yet they pretend to care about human life and existence. How big of a contradiction in terms is that? We can stop it. By the way, you can help. Send me an email to get my constitutional defense document packets. youwinnincourt@gmail.com. I'll get information out to you explaining the issues and how to use them, and especially in this area. And you get into the courtroom and you start raising these kind of issues early on, it gets interesting in a hurry. Now, these days, it's a bit of a problem from when I started out all those decades ago, because you could actually get documents filed. And I routinely did, not as good as documents as I have now in my document packets. So send me an email about that, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. But now you send documents in, and that's one of the things, by the way, you get with my documentation is that not only do we set the bastards up with an unopposed record in the trial court, I have all kinds of relevant admissible evidence to support every claim we make about violation of our rights. And not only that, they're then posed with the threat of my going on the witness stand in front of a jury with a cappella testimony on the Constitution, history and laws of the United States, and I'll be an expert witness when I do it. And I'll wake a few of them up. Can't have that. So I've never gotten close to a jury, and I probably never will get close to one, even though we have the right to trial by jury as inhabitants of territories. Hey, that's the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, and yet the right's nowhere in sight anywhere in one of these so-called states. It just isn't there. And I know parts have said have done away with it as far as criminal misdemeanor cases is concerned, and maybe more than that. I mean, we have no rights. What's the problem? You don't have any right to a trial by jury. See you later. And this, by the way, would be a jury that has the power to rule on the facts and the law. And that said, they would be the only independent arm of the judicial branch of government not subject to the State Bar Association. That's how we get out from under. And that's why they don't want you to know about it. And by the way, my document packets include at the moment almost 600 jury instructions. And I have had those denied, by the way, in some cases at the stroke of a pen. One stroke of a pen, all 600 without any opposition from the DA, nothing. By a black robe bastard that thinks he has the power to do it and thinks he has complete judicial immunity from any action we bring against him. That's another area I want to change in a hell of a hurry, too. And I think we can do that, too. But you go in there with that kind of thing, and in traffic cases especially, it stops them cold. And what often happens is you show up for the day of the quote unquote trial, their trial, aka directed verdict of guilt. And guess what? The traffic cop doesn't show up and they dismiss in the interest of justice or just us. And any of you out there have ever heard of a traffic cop uh, not showing up and get excited for a willful failure to appear and convicted for it? I'd love to hear about it. Simple. Never heard of that. Where's the equal protection? We don't show up. And one at the same time, we're invoking rights secured by the Constitution if one chooses not to do that. And they're going to convict us in absentia and issue an arrest warrant and have us thrown in jail? Really? Just so much here. I've run on a bit too long with this. But that said, remember to send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. And I'll send you information on my document packets. Subscribe, like the videos, tell your friends, get the word out. And as I've been saying across the board, Americans, Africans, Asians, quit, knock off this divide and conquer BS. We get there a lot quicker doing it the other way when we stand together and make the same arguments and go into the jury box and understand the same arguments and don't convict anybody of anything. If that's what it takes, and yes, that's an anarchist position to take, but we're not the anarchists. They are. So that said, subscribe, like the videos, tell other people, get the word out, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you.